damp trainer. A vague thought flitted through his brain. Something from last night. Something strange. But what? An object? An experience? Like a forgotten word or name that's on the tip of your tongue. He couldn't hold on to it, and meanwhile he was starting to freeze as the cold from the shoe crept up his leg. He needed to move and get some warm coffee in his belly. Schoch put on a yellow raincoat that he'd pinched one day from a construction site. It had once borne the logo of the construction firm, but now it was flecked with tar, and only the word building was still visible. He stuffed his sleeping bag into the stained holdall that contained a few more of his belongings. Pants, socks, t-shirt, shirt, wash bag, and a wallet with his papers. The rest of his things were stored in the Salvation Army hostel. Schoch was on good terms with the man who ran it. He pulled a baseball cap over his matted hair and stepped outside. He left nothing behind in the cave. The rain was so heavy that he could only just make out the far bank of the river. Schoch struggled up the slippery embankment, losing his footing twice. By the time he'd reached the riverside path, his trouser legs were smeared with mud up to the knees. Schoch had inherited his sleeping place from Sumi, the man who'd introduced him to life on the streets back at a time when there were still rules among the homeless, such as the one that said you respected other people's sleeping places. Now it wasn't like that anymore. These days you could come home to find somebody else already camped there. In most cases it was a labor migrant, someone who'd come to the country in search of work. Sumi had discovered the billet shortly after the flood of 2005, when the river level had risen so high that in several places it had hollowed out the ground beneath the path and washed away a large proportion of the vegetation. By chance, Sumi had noticed the gaping hole from the other bank. The only downside was that the cave was easily visible. But luckily, one of his jobs before ending up on the streets had been as an assistant gardener. From further downstream, where the river basin was broader and the water hadn't reached the embankment, he dug out some shrubs and replanted them in front of the cave. He baptized his sleeping place Riverbed and spent almost 8 years dossing there. Schoch was the only other person who knew of it. "When I croak," Sumi used to say, "you can have my riverbed." "You'll drink us all under the ground," Schoch would reply. But then Sumi died suddenly, drying out, delirium tremens. This had strengthened Schoch's resolve never to stop drinking. Not a soul was about on the riverside path. The early joggers he usually met at this time of the morning had been kept at home by the rain. It wasn't long before Schoch's dry shoe was just as soaked as the wet one. The rain ran down his beard and into the neck of his coat. Jutting out his chin, Schoch wiped his beard with the back of his hand. He urgently needed his second coffee now. He'd slept through the first one. Further along the path he passed a weir, where there was a small platform. 2 concrete posts were sunk into the embankment, to which a rescue pole was attached. It was a notorious spot because a whirlpool formed on the downstream side of the weir, especially when the water level was high. Schoch could hear shouting coming from the platform. He walked on until the vegetation on the bank no longer blocked his view. 2 men, one tall, one shorter, were standing on the concrete platform, prodding the brown water with the rescue pole below the eddy. "Need any help?" Schoch tried to shout, but his voice was so clogged up that he failed to utter anything audible. He cleared his throat. "Hey, hello." The tall man looked up. He was Japanese or Chinese. "Has someone fallen in?" Now the man with the rescue pole looked up too. A redhead with shaven hair. "My dog!" he cried. Schoch raised his shoulders and shook his head. "Whirlpool of death," he shouted. "Nothing gets out of there alive. It's swallowed plenty already. Forget the dog and concentrate on not falling in yourselves." The man with the rescue pole kept prodding the water. The other man waved to Schoch, said thanks in English, and turned back. Schoch continued on his way. "I warned them," he muttered. "I warned them." Chapter